All right, welcome. We're so glad all of you came out in this weather. We have a great story for you today from Claire. We're all set up, I think. Thank you, honey. So we're all set up, and I want to thank Serena for doing that. She's our second person in charge of technology. Mike and Angie are off on a little birthday celebration for Mike, and he definitely deserves some time off. He works out at NASA, and you know how all the launches are going off, and he's working like crazy. So we're really happy to have him when he's here, but then Serena, I'm very happy to have her. We had to switch up a little bit with rooms, and I appreciate you finding us. We're not very far, but anyway, we do have a lot today to cover in a way. I wanted to invite all of you to consider being on our board. I mean, we need maybe one more person to be on our board, our SCIANDS, Space Coast SCIANDS board, and we're having a meeting on November the 9th, right? If you would like to consider being a board member, there's not a tremendous amount of responsibility, but we do want to grow for 2026. So again, if you have any ideas or ways that you think you could help our little group grow, it's Angie, myself, Serena, and Janelle. And Janelle is working pretty full-time still as a mother, and she homeschools her children, so it's a little more difficult for her to come to all the meetings and be a part of, you know, the planning process. But if you'd like to be on the board, we'd love to have you consider that. And we're having a meeting on November the 9th. So get in touch with me before then, and I'll give you the details. Also, if you just have any ideas of how we can grow our local group, that would be wonderful. Mary, who is here sometimes, but today she couldn't be here, had a great idea about getting some more postcards out and giving them out. And then those of you that heard Jerry's story and his message from God was, it came back, he said to Jerry, he left him with this message: be better to one another. And so I had those put on these wristbands. So take these, give them out if you'd like. I think that's a great way. It has our website on the other side. And that's another way. I do have business cards, and I can make up some cards that say, if Mary's idea was, if you've lost a loved one, if you're grieving, come to our meetings and get support. I think that's great. So if you can come up with some other, instead of putting SCIANDS now, I'm starting to put Space Coast SCIANDS so that people know. But I'm open for any sort of feedback. It won't hurt my feelings at all for you to tell me things that we can do to get this group growing. I do want to invite Mark Anthony. He's a local psychic medium judge, and I do think he would bring a lot of notice to this group. And I think that he would want to participate in a local SCIANDS group. But he was one of the guest speakers at the SCIANDS conference this year, and he was tremendous. And we can work on getting him. So I've almost got the calendar filled for 2026. And here's the other thing I want to invite you. I know some of you come all the time, and I know that you have a story in there. I know you do. And if you are ready to share that story with us, I want you to reach out to me and say, hey, Deb, can I get on the calendar? So we've got October, November, December open right now. I think I have maybe July open. I'm not sure. But everything else is booked. Tony's going to be here in September, right? And I know, Sandra, you've talked a couple of times, and Serena's talked once, right? I was trying to not have a speaker talk 2 years in a row, but maybe, you know, But anyway, I've got feelers out there for a lot of different people, and I'm getting responses from others that want to share their story. And so I'm hoping that we'll have a great calendar filled out by November 1st, by our next meeting, so I can give you the calendar and we can start promoting. Now, every one of you helps by bringing someone or talking about what's going on at our meetings. So thank you for doing that. And because you do that, we have a participation gift that we give out. And so, Serena, would you like to pull the lucky number? And here's our gift. So look at your little ticket, the last few numbers, and this is your little gift. I don't know what's in here because Helma is the one that's provided these gifts, which is wonderful. It feels a little heavy and it feels kind of different from like a wooden spoon or something that she's given before.
Last four of 3634. 3634.
3634.
Yeah, 3641 is me. 3634.
Somebody has it.
Getting it right.
Someone. All right, we'll pull another. We'll pull another.
What was signed up after us, because I have 33, but that's the first one ever signed up after me.
Well, excuse you lose.
Okay.
We'll do one more number.
3642.
There you go. Good, Martha. Martha, you deserved, Martha deserves to win because if I had to give perfect attendance awards, she has won the perfect attendance award. She's been coming now for 4 years, almost every time. She doesn't miss. So thank you. Yeah, not much though. So thank you for being here and thank you, Martha, for everything you do. Martha always gives me little tips too. She will send me an email or text and gives me these little ideas. So I appreciate that. We have Laura Lee Drake next month on November 23rd. And then we have Nancy Dennison in December. Both of those ladies are so interesting and have such great stories. Their journey has been phenomenal. But I'd like to go ahead and talk about Claire. Got it? What is it? Oh, a little, okay. Little crystal ball. We're looking, for those of you on Zoom, we're looking at our little gift. So thank you for being patient. I wish some of you could win that little gift, but Martha's won it this month and we're all looking at it. We're all excited about our little gift. Okay, well, let me I want to give Claire plenty of time. I told her that she could come on at 3:10 and talk to us. I'm not going to ask her a whole lot of questions, but I want you to be thinking of questions that you can ask her. And she'll stop about 4:30 because we, as you know, we need to get out of the library by 4:45. But Claire, I always try to find something about a speaker that resonates personally with me. I don't know why that is. I guess it's just this connection that I want to feel with this special person that has actually had this fabulous experience and gone to another realm and gone to heaven or met someone. So I just kind of want to have something that resonates with me. And I listen to some of their other podcasts and I read their books if they have a book. And I was listening to Claire, and her husband was introducing her to this meeting. And he just seemed like such a gentle, loving soul. And he was talking about how they had, back in the 80s, and Claire's about my age, and I think you are, anyway. Claire and Levi, her husband, had an arranged marriage. And I thought, wow, that's maybe what I should have had on the first one. But anyway, that wasn't their first one. They had the arranged marriage. That this was going to be their second marriage. And correct me if I'm wrong, Claire.
It was my first, his second.
Your first, but you had a child, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And he had 4 children. So they were getting into a marriage that was going to be challenging, right? And the reason I'm telling this story is because I was always one of those girls that tried to follow all the rules of my little town. And one of the rules when I was 13, I found out, was that I should not accept a ride from my Hispanic friend that was a guy. I shouldn't accept a ride from him to come home. And boy, I got in so much trouble because I accepted this ride from we called them Mexicans in Texas. And I got home and my mother wasn't terribly mad, but she sat me down and wanted to have this conversation about how and she didn't really even say inappropriate, but she said, you know, you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you get married and you have these cultural differences. And and I knew their marriage. My mom and dad's marriage was tough enough. And I saw all the marriages around me that were extremely tough, and they were all married to the same, white people and all that. So she said, don't get involved with anyone that's not of your culture. And I just listened, and I could have, I guess, rebelled because I really liked this guy, but I did not. I remained friends with him at school, but didn't accept rides, didn't get involved with him. Okay, so many years later, when I guess I just really left my little small town in Texas, and I met and married an Israeli Jew, you can imagine that one of the people that I did not invite to this wedding were my parents. There was just no way that they would be able to accept that their daughter was going to marry an Israeli Jew. They were so small-minded and almost bigoted. So this really, Claire's marriage to Levi, who is black and from Africa, was he originally?
No, he's from Norfolk. He's from the South.
He's from the South. Okay. Anyway, when they're talking about that and that they've now been married X number of years and have 46 children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, I thought, wow, she was so brave and courageous that she did what she believed in something much bigger than I did. She believed Dr. Moon was a influence of hers, and they were married, and she maybe can tell you this. I think they were all married in Central Park. So
Madison Square Garden.
Garden. I knew you were going to correct me somewhere in there.
Well, that's okay.
But anyway, my point is, I just feel like that Claire took what was really important, what God wants for us. And Dr. Moon said, and I'm paraphrasing, that we need to love our enemies and so that we can understand them. And here I was being told we stay away from anyone that's not like us. You see the big difference? Mm-hmm. So it's taken me 50 years to get where Claire and Levi were 50 years ago. I don't know, I just find that amazing to share with you. But she she's much further ahead in her spiritual journey than I probably can ever get in this lifetime. But I want her now to, she's probably going, why did you pick that
Oh, it's okay.
to introduce me with? But I just thought, wow, you were so brave and so faithful to God. I think that's what I'm really saying is how faithful you and Levi have been, because I'm sure that you've had your ups and downs in your marriage, just like the rest of it. But you were faithful and stayed committed to your marriage. And so for that, let's give her a hand.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's something if I really want to knock people out of their seats, I tell them I had an arranged marriage and their eyes get big and I'm not Muslim, I'm not Orthodox Jewish or Hindu, many of the cultural groups that practice arranged marriages. But I was, as you mentioned, a student of Reverend Sun Myung Moon he's deceased now, but his wife is continuing to lead a worldwide movement of creating peace, and it goes beyond all borders. It's everywhere in the world, and people of many, many faith backgrounds are working together as one family under God. Levi and I were married in 1982 in Madison Square Garden, right down the street from Central Park. You were pretty close. And of course, there was lots of news coverage. Most people thought it was a big joke. We made the front page of the National Enquirer, and many people assumed that it was just a scam, but the interesting thing is our divorce rate was in the very low single digits. Many of us are deceased now because this was, what, 82, 40, 40, I think we're on 43 now, 43 years ago. And we've gotten up in age, and a lot of them have made their transition to the next world. But most of us stayed married because we had a common idea, we had a common vision. Even though many of us came from very different cultures, there were some couples that really didn't share a common language. They had to work on that and communicate as best they could. And most of us are grandparents now. But as you mentioned, Levi and I brought children with us to this marriage. My daughter was not with us, but he had custody of his four children, and we added five more on. So now we have 10 children, they're all adults, and we have a combined total of 20 grandchildren. And from Levi's first marriage, there are 28 great-grandchildren. So it's a tribe.
Yes.
And the one question I always get, and I'm sure someone will ask it, so I'll answer it preemptively. Do you ever all get together? And the answer is no. We get as many together as we can. Maybe even funerals because they're scattered. It depends, whose funeral it is. They're scattered. We've got Oklahoma, Maine, California, Baltimore, North Carolina, Virginia, Germany. They're everywhere. Um, Reverend Moon was my spiritual guide and teacher for many years. He received many, many channeled messages of how to create peace on earth, how to put it not just an end to war, but a society of mutual prosperity, common values, and interdependence. And we're still working on that now, a couple generations later. And it's pretty amazing. The press was never our friend, and they always put things in a light that was very distorted. But if you have the chance to find out what it's really about, it's pretty inspiring. I'm going to talk about my near-death experience, which occurred before I met Reverend Moon's movement, peace movement. I was 20 years old, and I was living in France. And it's interesting, you mentioned the rain today. My dear near-death experience took place in a blinding rainstorm. And I was an au pair girl in Paris. I was living with a French family, and I had gone there with the intention of spending 6 months to learn French. And I stayed about a year and a half. I just stayed another 6 months and another 6 months because I really loved it. And I'd gone over there in September. The first summer I was there, we were on our way to see Grandma, who lived in Brittany, which is in the northwest part of France. And this was in 1970. So the roads were very basic then. The rural countryside in France at that time, there were no superhighways. There were two lane country roads. And it was a pretty remote place. And the driver, my employer of my au pair family, fell asleep at the wheel during a blinding rainstorm. Her 5-year-old was in the front seat with her, and I was in the back seat sleeping with the baby, who was 18 months old. She dozed off, went off the road, and immediately woke up, of course, and tried to correct, and she went into a spin. And I remember waking up, and the car was spinning like a top. It was heavily laden in the back with luggage because we were going on summer vacation. And with a baby, anyone who's had a baby, you know, all the equipment that's got to go. Um, and I remember thinking, I knew that this life was not all there is. I've been a sensitive my whole life, but I knew there was the next life. And I remember thinking, well, nothing I can do. This is the end for me. And a thought went through my mind. I hope when my spirit leaves my body, it's not excruciatingly painful, you know, the destruction of my physical body. And that's the last thing I remember. Suddenly, I was not there. When people ask about the actual accident, I have to say I don't know because I wasn't there. I was escorted away and suddenly found myself standing in front of a huge door, like the door of a castle, like an oak door. And it had beautiful wrought iron door pulls on it. But with my spiritual eyes, I could see what was on the other side. And on the other side of this beautiful door were the most unearthly green fields, rolling fields with colors that you cannot find on earth. And at the end of the field was a cliff that dropped down to the sea. And it wasn't just the visual impact that it had on me, but the feeling of, excuse me, the feeling of this place was one of total serenity, joy, love. Again, it's very difficult to put into human language those kinds of experiences, but I really knew I was in the presence of God. And I eagerly put my hand on the door pull to open the door and to cross into this beautiful world. And I felt two invisible hands put themselves on my chest and thrust me backward. I was not allowed to enter. And the next thing I knew, I was physically flying, you know, through the air. I had been ejected from the car, as was the baby, and I landed flat on my back in a rain-soaked field. And my first thought is, I wonder if all my limbs are attached. So, like Pinocchio coming to life, I moved both arms and both legs, and I thought, well, all my limbs work. And I put my hand to my face to see if I still had a face, and my hand was covered in blood. Um, I think it must have been a moonlit night because I could see in the dark. And I actually had a cut on the bridge of my nose, and I did break my nose. The bone was cracked, but not displaced, so I didn't need any corrective surgery. And my first thought was, I remember saying, "What a jip!" Like I felt really cheated that I wasn't allowed to cross into that beautiful world. But I pulled myself together and felt I had to find the other people. And by the time I got to my feet and walked closer to the highway, the car was on one side of the highway. It's a narrow two-lane country road. I got up and she had already crossed the highway and she was looking for the baby. The 5-year-old was with her and he was walking and she was walking. And we all were looking for him and we found him in a lovely, squishy, muddy place, inches from a stone wall. And he landed as I did, splat in the mud. I landed in a field. My shoe actually got knocked off my foot from the impact. I don't know if I went through the door, if I went through the hatchback, because as I said, I wasn't there. We were taken to a country hospital where we were kept under observation. I had a piece of glass removed from my foot, and an x-ray showed my nose had been cracked, and the others had bruises. It's possible that the baby had a hairline fracture in the back of his skull, but this was 1970, and they didn't have the technology that we have today. He was wiggling so much they couldn't really get clear pictures. And then life went on from that point. But once you've had a near-death experience, you're changed. You know, when you've had a taste of that sense of boundless love and beauty that's on the other side, you you don't fear death. There was a time in my life when I was going through a series of problems that I thought I might die. And my only concern was I had young children at the time. I didn't want to leave my children without a mother. But for myself, I thought, well, I'm ready anytime. I do have a sense that I have a mission, and I would like to have enough time to find some proteges that can do what I do and carry on the work that I've been doing when I leave this world, because I do help a lot of people as a professional medium. Many people find profound healing through the readings that I do, especially people who are in the throes of grief. And when they're able to talk to their loved one, and the loved one gives them clear signs that it's unmistakably them, and this is not something that's just, I'm not just pulling this out of my ear. By the end of the reading, if they're laughing, I've done my job. I get some of the funniest things from the spirit world that don't make any sense at all to me. But I was trained in the spiritualist church. I had been practicing as a professional medium already, but I did go to mediumship development classes, and I loved it because when you have a really unusual gift that people do not understand, um, they tend to treat you like you're a little strange, to put it mildly. But being in a group of other mediums was just so refreshing for me, and I could really just be myself. Um, I learned a very simple rule that budding mediums are taught, and that is give what you get. Don't try to edit, don't try to analyze, just spit it out. And there's one family that usually has a reading every year on the anniversary of their young son's death. He was in his early 20s and died in a freak accident. And the family would gather, his siblings and their spouses and the parents, and they've kind of scattered now, so it's by Zoom. Um, and they asked him a serious question about a problem one of them was having and if he had any insight. And his answer was bake brownies and use lots of walnuts. I hesitated a moment to repeat that because I thought that is ludicrous. What does that have to do with the question they just asked? But I said, I don't know what this means, but he says bake brownies and use lots of walnuts. And the entire family got hysterical laughing. And they said that's exactly what he would do in this situation, bake brownies. Apparently, his way of making peace when there was a conflict in a relationship or a misunderstanding of any sort, he would bake. And the more chocolate, the better. So brownies with walnuts was his answer, and they understood exactly what he meant. And the same young man in a different reading um, said something about his brother looking like a lumberjack. He had a very long beard, and they lived in the north where there are lumberjacks. And again, they just started laughing. That was one of his nicknames, was lumberjack. So the spirits will give what we call identifiers. And then it's easier for the family or the loved ones to listen to what they have to say because they know it really is them. Sometimes they'll tell an inside joke. Um, I had a mother who had one child, one adopted child, who was the light of her life, and he died right before her eyes in again, a freak accident. And she almost lost her mind from it. She just retreated from life. And after he had been dead for about 10 years, her husband convinced her to have reading. And I saw this very handsome young man, and he had a big bow tie with polka dots, clown-sized bow tie, and a little hat with a squirting flower. And I was really reluctant to tell her what I was seeing because I thought she's going to think I'm making light of her grief. And she burst into sobs and said, "That's him, that's him. We had a song we sang about polka dots, and he loved clowns." So that was his signal to his mom, "It really is me." And the reading was very beautiful, and he told her what he does in the spirit world, and um, he welcomed babies who were born with conditions that are called incompatible with life. Some of these babies lived minutes, hours, um, but their families were forever changed. And he was saying to his mother, "Aren't they beautiful? They're such beautiful souls," as he was caring for these little newborn babies. And it's interesting because the mother had been inspired after, and these are children that our society many times considers disposable. When people get an adverse diagnosis in pregnancy, they're usually advised to abort the child. Some families choose to carry to term. Some families don't know that there is a serious condition, but they're never the same after. So these children come in with an agreement that they will come and go, but they leave behind gifts. People go through tremendous pain, but they're forced to change and to go deeper and to be transformed. And these children were just like little shining stars. They were so beautiful spiritually. And the mother said that after his death, she was inspired to work at the mental hospital as a volunteer and work with these people that everyone else considered, useless. But she could see their divinity and that they needed love too. And she found it very interesting that her son was doing something very similar, working with children that many people felt did not have value and didn't deserve to live, even if their life expectancy was 2 hours. So that was and there were many more. Another time I was doing a reading for a lady, and people oftentimes are very guarded and they want some proof that I'm really getting this from the spirit world. And they don't understand the spirit world does not speak in human language. It speaks with metaphor sometimes, emotion, inspirations, visuals. So this woman said, "I felt if you're real, you're going to tell me a number." She had a number in mind. Well, I didn't come up with any number because the spirit world doesn't communicate in that kind of analytical left brain stuff. And at the end of the reading, I said, "Wait, wait, your father's coming. He's running and he's got a little velvet bag." And he keeps saying, "Don't forget the jewels. Don't forget the jewels." And again, she started laughing and laughing. And that was something that was crystal clear to her. When the war in the Ukraine broke out, her daughter is in Europe. She said, "Be prepared to evacuate at any moment and, take things with you that you can barter or sell because sometimes the economic system will collapse in a war." So she said, "Take all your jewelry. If you take nothing else, take any, real jewelry you have." So when her father came running with his little bag of jewels, she said, "Okay, I was looking for a number, but I got something. I know this is real. Um, I love my work. I love my work as a medium. Many people have near-death experiences. They know the spirit world is real because they've had a visit. But I go there all the time. I'm in and out, in and out, in and out. I have a lifetime pass, but I go on behalf of other people. And it's a wonderful profession because I'm able to help people heal their hearts and I can give people encouragement. One of my favorite, in addition to um, ministering to the grieving, is people who are yearning for a child and trying to conceive. And when I see a baby and I get a very clear message that the baby will come, it took me a while to have the nerve to say, yes, you are going to have a baby. Because I think, well, what if they don't? I don't want to get their hopes up and then have them dashed once more. But when it's very clear, it's almost as if the child's spirit is approaching, it's coming in. And I remember there was a couple in Slovakia, and I saw two children coming to them by adoption, a brother-sister pair. And they were very small children. The little boy was under 3. I wasn't sure. He looked to be about 2 or 3, between 2 and 3. And the little girl was just starting to walk. And within 4 months of the reading, they got a brother-sister pair. And they were hesitant at first because they were a different ethnic group. And, Eastern Europe is very homogeneous. And these children were Roma people that were formerly called gypsies. And it would be very clear that they were not their biological children. But I told them, wait a minute now. We were in the same movement where we married internationally, we adopted internationally. I said, it's a talking point. They'll be your children by law and by love. And it's a testimony that you can give to creating a peaceful, ideal world. And I'm happy to say that that was 7 years ago. And these children are thriving. And they send me pictures, and it makes me so, so happy to see this beautiful little family. And the brother and the sister are full siblings. So it's so nice that they were kept together. Um, I do lots and lots of different things, but helping people to understand the reality of the spirit world, I feel is my primary mission. That we are, in fact, spirit beings, eternal spirit beings. We have a spiritual body that lasts for eternity, and we're having a temporary physical experience. We're passing through this material world, much like we spent 9 months in our mother's womb, preparing for life on earth. If a child is born at 6 months, he's going to have a very hard time living in this world. He's going to need a lot of assistance. So our life on earth is to prepare us. It's like the second womb, is to prepare us for the next world where we'll see things more fully. 1 Corinthians 13, St. Paul talks about now we see through a glass dimly. Some translations say darkly. We don't see clearly because it's not all clear, but then we'll see everything fully. And I really believe that because I'm assuming I go to some kind of a way station because I'm still alive, I haven't died, between the spirit realm and the physical realm. And the interesting thing is, it looks a lot like the place that I almost went to in my near-death experience. It's a big green field. There are forests on either side. One side is thick pine forest. The other side is oak trees. And at the very end of the field is a cliff that drops down to the sea, just like in my near-death experience. And this is this is a place where usually, most of my readings start here. I just assume they're going to be there unless I'm taken somewhere else, which occasionally happens. I do work with lots of angels. There are always angels escorting us from the physical to the spirit plane. Um, there are like the security force. They secure the perimeter so that only those who come with good intentions are given admittance. Um, there are different groups of angels that work with me. My generic angels, I guess you'd call them my security force, I usually perceive them with a very simple white robe and a gold sash. Sometimes they'll have some unique insignia on their robe. Sometimes it will be the colors or an emblem of a country. My readings are very international. I've been to over 40 countries. And most of these places I went to because I was invited to share about working with angels. I know we had some talk, it's been many months, maybe almost a year since I was first invited, and there was some discussion of maybe coming to the Space Coast to do one of my angel workshops. Um, I'm 75 now and I'm traveling a lot less than I used to, but I do a lot of work on Zoom. And angels are very real. They're very powerful beings, and they are available for the asking. And they are perfectly aligned with heaven's will. They are in perfect harmony with the will of God, and they don't stray from that. So if we align ourselves and try to figure out what that is for me, what does God want me to do? We'll get it all. But many times we're telling God what we want. I need this, I need that, give me this, give me that, instead of saying, "Here am I, Lord. Send me. What do you need from me? Why am I here? What's the next step?" And the angels they delight in assisting us to take the next step, to follow our map, to follow the direction that we came in with, to fulfill our life contract. Um, they never impose themselves on us. There is one group that sometimes, if you're in grave danger, I think God sends them directly. They're like the special forces. We've all had experience of a near miss, of an almost accident, or a close call of some sort. Some people have had experiences of people coming to them in a difficult situation, and when they turn around to thank them, there's no one there. And yet clearly you were just talking to someone. Um, I've had many experiences like that and have heard many, many stories doing my angel workshops. Um, the angels came to me, a group of angels, not all of them, of course, in 2017 and asked me to take my angel workshop to Europe. When I first got this message, I thought that's ludicrous. I actually was going to Europe to see my son in Germany, but I was told to go to Scandinavia. I didn't know a living soul in Scandinavia. I was told to go to Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And the more I resisted, thinking that's crazy, the more the spiritual pressure built up. I'm sure everyone's heard the expression, if you don't respond when you get the nudge, eventually you'll get hit by the invisible 2x4. And it kept going until I just said, okay. And I bought tickets, one-way tickets from Germany. My first stop was Denmark, then I went to Sweden and then Norway. And I had miraculous experiences. The angels promised me, I said, I don't have the money to do this. Who's going to pay for this? And what I was told is, if you do this, we'll take care of the business end. And boy, did they come through. In Copenhagen, the first night, I think it was a Monday night. Most people had come after work. 28 people showed up, which was more than the host expected. It was held in an international, there are peace embassies in many different countries that are part of this peace movement. And I was a guest there. They had residential guest rooms and then they had a meeting room. And 28 people came. And at the time, my husband and we do still have a nonprofit that works in Haiti. And I was not beyond my expenses, I didn't keep any of the money I raised, but I invited people to make a donation for our Kingmaker Foundation. And when I came down for breakfast the next morning, the host, his face was white as a sheet. And he said, I never imagined. And I said, what? Is something wrong? He said, no. And he handed me the local equivalent of $1,400 that people had just dropped in a cardboard box. So, needless to say, my expenses were covered. And by the end of that little tour of 3 places, I had enough to dig a well in Haiti. Um, I didn't start charging personally for the readings I do until 2022 when my husband retired. But through the early years of my readings, we were able to build 2 libraries, a youth center, do distributions of a special little shoe that grows. It's called the shoe that grows. You can look it up online. We were able to give some very simple relief after the hurricane, temporary shelters, and it's just been a marvelous, marvelous experience. And the work goes on. The libraries, by American standards, they wouldn't be considered much because they have a hodgepodge of donated books that I've collected mostly in France. Haiti is French speaking. So whatever I can get my hands on, I take. And that goes into our 2 little libraries. So I don't think I need a whole hour, although I'm shocked to see that it's already 3:49. I do have another speaking engagement at 4:30 that I have to go to physically. So I would like to open up for questions now, if that's okay.
Okay, that,
And
yeah,
people can ask me about anything, about my nonprofit, about my near death, about my mediumship work, or about my arranged marriage, whatever you like.
well, I'm glad you covered, I think almost everything in your bio. I assumed everyone had read it, and that may have not been the case, but I do, put your bio online, and I'm hoping everyone's going to our website to read it. But when I do have a question, and I may know the answer, but I'd like for you to talk about it. You said you were sensitive as a child, or you felt like uh, did you feel like you had more gifts when you had your first NDE? When you came back, did you feel then that
Um,
you had more
yeah,
of a
that's a question
medium?
I get. I didn't notice a dramatic change because I was already at that point in my life. I think my gifts started really manifesting when I was in my teens. I started just for fun. If anyone's old enough here, they might remember little pocket Dell books. They were 25 cents. It was a little book about this big. And they were on all different topics. And I got one on palmistry. And I started studying the meaning of the different lines in the hand. I never became that skilled at it, but I started reading, and then I got more in-depth books. I read some of the work by Chiro, who was a 19th century palmist. But I found when I would take someone's hand, I'd use the lines as kind of a segue into a download. And I would just, information would just come to me, and people were amazed. They said that's really incredible because it was true. And then in my late 20s, I was living in Mexico, and a friend took me to get my Turkish coffee read. I'm sure people have heard of having your tea leaves read. Well, the Turkish coffee is a very fine powdered coffee that's boiled. And when you drink the little, it's like a little espresso cup, it leaves a residue in the cup. And a woman who did this taught me how to do it. It's very simple. She said, you could do this. And I said, I wouldn't have any idea how. She said, no, just look at it and let it talk to you. And then I started reading coffee for, again, just for friends. And I realized I really did have a gift. And it was more, I would say for entertainment, but also I was giving people a lot of insight. It wasn't just entertainment. And then I started to study Reiki. Oh no, there were other things. Very briefly, I was channeling in a group, and we were getting guidance. We were all working on a very serious project together, and I had some really amazing downloads. But there was a series of events, and this was in the 80s. I was in my late 30s. I felt that there was a beginning and an end to that channeling. It was very specific for the work we were doing. And I could see the danger of kind of being taken over, that the spirit world could just think, oh, wow, there's an open door. In my 40s, early 40s, I went to a meditation class, and it was led by a very adept medium. And I talked to him and his wife, and they agreed that, it's time for me to start working professionally. I I studied Reiki shortly after that. I did become a third degree Reiki master. And as I was working on people, I was getting amazing downloads, even though you're not supposed to do that in Reiki. I didn't know that. I worked with another woman. We worked as partners. And that was kind of the beginning of my professional work. I would say that was actually mid 90s. I took a break for a while because I had still had young children, even in my 40s. And around 2010 is when I really got back into it very seriously. And that, as I said, in 2017, I began my international speaking tours. Did I answer your question or go all over the place?
Good. Most people here are fairly enlightened, and they may or may not know the difference between being a medium and channeling. If you want to maybe touch on that a little bit, because I know there's a few people in here that have no idea what channeling is.
Well, in channeling, you open yourself up to allow another spirit person to speak directly through you. Um, some people go into a deep trance and the other spirit takes over. Some it's like I was not in I was in like a semi-trance. I was conscious, but it's like I stepped aside and the other spirit was speaking. And my voice would change. And it was like there was a slight delay. I knew what they were going to say before it was like coming out of my mouth. But I felt that that period had a beginning and an end, and I had accomplished my purpose. What I practice now is mental mediumship. And in mental mediumship, it's like I'm getting a download from the spirit person. Oftentimes it's not words. The channeling was specific words. Oftentimes it's a vision. There's a visual, there's an emotional component, and I have to express it. They're working through my mind. They're not taking over my body. It's like they're sitting right next to me.
Mhm. And is that because you're able to get to that higher frequency, and the spirit is lowering their frequency to
Well,
connect?
hopefully they don't have to lower themselves. We kind of meet at a way station, as I said, the
Okay.
place that I go. It's kind of my impression. When I get to the other side, I'll get the full story. But it's like a meeting space. Now, it's interesting you bring that point up because sometimes if I have to go to a higher level of the spirit realm than I would naturally resonate with, I'm given special assistance. There is a beautiful space age office building that I'm sometimes taken to. And the angels that are in charge there, I call them my men in black. They wear black suits and white shirts with a black tie. They look like Secret Service. And they always escort me, and they'll always tell me, we go in an elevator. Today we're going to the 23rd floor, the 40th floor, the third. And by the number, I'll know, oh, that's pretty high. I've only been there once or twice. And depending on the mission of the person I'm reading for, they might need information from a higher realm. Now, a couple of times I was taken to visit I'll call him holy, a scientist who had dedicated his life to research that would really improve the future of humanity. And the light was so brilliant, I really had trouble seeing. Everything was kind of blurry, like looking at the sun. And he gave me goggles to put on, like sunglasses. Oh, and then I could see clearly. So sometimes, if I'm in a realm that is unnaturally high for me, I will be given assistance so that I can get the information. I've had some wild experiences. I choose not to go into lower realms. So what I ask is if I create a bubble of protection, like a sacred space. I thank the angels who secure it for us, and that only people who come motivated by love from the realms of love and truth can pass through, and that others who are not qualified to enter, their frequency is too low, that if they have a legitimate message, that interpreters will be provided for them. And sometimes that happens. The person either feels uncomfortable to come into our space because it's too high for them, or they have shame or fear or guilt. But I saw one young man who, um, as he was speaking, I could see he was coming up and up and up, and he had committed suicide and had terrible shame when he saw the pain that his mother was going through. But as she just kept loving him and telling him she forgave him and her love would never change, I could see he showed himself in a submarine, which was a good image. But I could see he was just rising and rising little by little. And the next reading I had for her, he was he was fine. And he was in school. He showed himself as a little schoolboy in a uniform. And he was ready to learn and kind of review his whole life. But sometimes people have obstacles because of their own self-judgment. We judge ourselves. I'm sure people have heard that before. And sometimes people need assistance on the other side. And prayer actually is very valuable to pray for people who are on the other side. It's like they're getting a telegram. They're receiving our love and they're receiving our care and our thoughts for them and our concern. I would like to recommend a wonderful movie that illustrates that quite nicely. It's in Portuguese. It was made in Brazil, but it does have subtitles in English. It's called Astral, Astral, Astral City, and you can get it on Amazon. It's, I feel, in many respects, a very accurate portrayal of the spirit side and the kind of healing opportunities people are offered. So if you want to write that down, Astral City is a good movie to see how valuable your prayers are for other people.
Now, I've asked several questions, but let me ask anyone else. Does anyone else want to ask Claire a question? Okay, Bob?
When you had your NDE and you were at the outdoor and everything, did you hear any voices? Did you get a message at all from anything? Or given a sign at that time for anything?
Um, did I hear a voice or get a sign? The sign that I got was, "You can't come in." I did not hear a voice. There was no language. It was all on the level of emotion. I was just drawn. I wanted very much to go in, but I did physically feel two hands push me back. Um,
And
I wasn't given a message.
Claire, some people have asked me, and I have not had a near-death experience, so I don't always feel like I'm very qualified to answer this question, but some people have asked me, well, why is it that some people die and they stay, and some people die and they come back with this NDE? And the way I have explained it is that I believe that the people that come back are sent back with a mission. They're sort of like our modern day prophets. They're here to guide us with their message, their story, the knowledge that they got. But is there a better answer?
I think I would agree very much with your answer that some people are not admitted. They are sent back. Even in many cases, they don't want to come back, but they're told that their job is not done. They have unfinished business and they're not admitted. They have work to do, and other people are waiting for them. My niece had a near-death experience after the birth of her second child. She started hemorrhaging and she collapsed. And she said it was the most beautiful experience of her life. And she knew that she had a newborn baby and she didn't have any desire to come back. But it was her mission to raise those children, and she was sent back. Um, some people die because their contract is up. Some people are given a choice. Many people in their near death experience are asked, you can go back or you can stay. Um, I think some are not given the choice. They're sent back whether they want to come or not. But I'd say my answer aligns quite closely with yours, actually. I would agree with your explanation.
Okay. We have another question from Sally.
I'd like, you had any indications of any?
I can't hear anything.
Okay, she's saying, she asked, did you have any indication of your abilities as a young child?
And also,
Um,
And also, do any of your biological children have any of your traits? Yeah.
all five of them. My first daughter does not particularly, but my five children with my husband are all very spiritually sensitive. My sister is also a natural medium, although she's in the closet. She'll work with me. I've tried to drag her on tour with me, but she won't come. She's very shy. Um, as a young child, I was very aware of the spirit world. My mother taught me to pray when I was maybe 3, maybe barely out of diapers, and angels were real to me. Jesus, I felt, was my protector and my friend. Oh, I did have a religious education, and when I was 10 years old for my birthday, I asked for a book of the lives of the saints, and my grandmother was thrilled. She gave it to me. I was a rather unusual child in some respects. I was raised in Catholic school and we attended Mass every day. And when we had a school holiday, I would ride my bike to church because I loved sacred ceremony. I loved being in that sacred environment where people were praying and there was a sense of acknowledging the divine.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, let's see. Is it Nancy? Would you like to ask a question, Nancy?
Yes, thank you, Claire, for coming today.
My pleasure.
Um, my granddog, who I love, recently transitioned a couple of days ago, and my knowledge about NDEs and the other side that I've learned has been a great comfort to me. But I just wanted to know, maybe get a little reassurance from you, or if you know anything about pets. Back to
Uh,
the
yes, I also do pet readings, which I was unintentional. Um, I'm a pet lover. I've had many dogs, and I look forward to meeting them again. And I take my little dog to a veterinarian chiropractor, and they had a rack for business cards, and I asked to leave my card there, thinking I'd get some human clients, and people started calling me for pet readings. And I was a little hesitant because I thought, I don't know how to do this. But actually, it's very easy. I don't know if it was actually the animal talking to me or if it was the nature spirits that attend and protect our beloved little furry critters. But I was able to tap in, maybe it's an oversoul that I'm tapping into, but I was able to get some very accurate and helpful pet readings. So I do them. They're not an hour long. My human readings are an hour long, and usually 30 minutes is plenty for a pet. And our pets love us, as everyone who's ever had a beloved pet knows, and they don't want us to grieve. And they're waiting for us. We'll see them again.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? As I mentioned, I have another speaking engagement at 4:30. That was my husband in giving me a message.
It's fine for simple yes or no answer.
Okay, we have one more question.
Okay.
All kinds of pets.
Do you include all kinds of pets?
So
No.
far, I've only done cats and dogs. I'm willing to try. I haven't had any kangaroos or rabbits, but I would try.
Yeah, I think she was talking rabbits, guinea pigs, that kind of thing. Well, Claire, we certainly appreciate your time today. I learned a tremendous amount, and I thank you for sharing your story with us. And we wish you many, many, many more experiences to be able to share with others.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like I'm giving you the rush. I didn't mean that. What I could do is take my phone with me in my car if there are more questions. I don't want to rush anyone.
That's okay. We do, yeah, someone said, come and see us sometime. So you always
I'll have to
have
come do an angel workshop.
That's right. We talked about that, and that would be wonderful to do. So we appreciate the time, and everybody here needs to get on the road and be safe. So we appreciate.
And I would like to mention that I have a couple thousand Facebook friends. So if
Okay.
you send me a message on Facebook Messenger, eventually I check it every couple weeks maybe. And then I do put announcements on January 1st, as I do every year, I will give prophecy for the coming year. And that will be broadcast by Zoom. And it will be recorded, and I'll probably post it on Facebook. But if people could give you their contact, if they wish to be on the mailing list for that, if they'd like to attend the January 1st Zoom, I can't tell you the exact time because there are people, I mean, we had 11 countries one time, and I try to time it so that most people are awake and not getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I gave up Australia and New Zealand. It's just the time difference is too great. But I included everyone from Hawaii to Europe at a reasonable hour.
Yeah, I did hear
So
your.
please come January 1st for the prophecy for 2026.
Okay.
And I'm happy to do readings. If anyone would like a reading, they can contact me through you.
Okay.
And it's been a pleasure joining you.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
And thank you, Nancy and Pat and Mary, for being on today. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.